All right, today we're putting the new Chris Pratt sci-fi thriller Mercy on the stand. This is one of those really high-concept films about a detective who's facing a judge, but the judge isn't human. It's an AI he actually helped create. The premise alone is super gripping, so let's just dive right in.
And there it is, that's the core hook of the whole movie. It's a classic ticking clock thriller, but with that massive twist. The judge is a machine. This whole setup creates this incredibly tense race against what is basically a digital executioner.
So let's meet the main players here. You've got Chris Pratt as a detective, and he's trapped in this crazy high-tech chair accused of murdering his wife. And his judge? Well, that's an advanced AI named Mercy, voiced by Rebecca Ferguson. But the real kicker, the thing that makes this so interesting, is that he's the guy who championed this AI justice system. He helped put it in power. I mean, the irony is just baked right into the story.
And this, right here, is the movie's central gimmick. The entire story unfolds in 90 minutes, and it mirrors the countdown clock that you see on screen. The whole point is to create this feeling of relentless tension as our hero is just fighting to clear his name before the system delivers its final lethal verdict. Now, what's really fascinating here is the massive gap between what the film promises and what it actually delivers. On the one hand, you're sold this idea of a high-octane, nail-biting thriller. But on the other hand, the reality of it feels more like a watered-down version of a sci-fi classic like Minority Report. You have this major action star, Chris Pratt, who then spends almost the entire movie just sitting in a chair. It creates this real disconnect that makes the film feel less like a big-screen blockbuster and way more like something designed for streaming.
But hey, let's be fair. Despite some of its issues, there's a stretch right in the middle where the film really works. When it leans into being a procedural crime drama, that central whodunit mystery is genuinely compelling. It really keeps you hooked.
And this is how he does it. From that trial chair, Pratt's character has to basically become a remote detective. He's analyzing evidence that's popping up on his screen. He's using virtual reality to walk through the crime scene. He's even interrogating witnesses through video calls. And for a while, watching him piece this whole puzzle together from his confinement is actually pretty engaging stuff.
Yeah, this quote perfectly captures that middle part of the movie. There's this solid buildup of momentum. You actually find yourself invested, asking, okay, how is this guy gonna get out of this? The film does a great job of pulling you in and making you care about the outcome, right before it all starts to fall apart.
But see, that investment comes with a pretty big price tag. To enjoy the rest of the movie, especially as it just barrels into its final act, you have to actively ignore some massive logical problems. The story starts to demand a complete and total suspension of disbelief. Okay, so let's just rapid fire through some of the biggest issues. First up, how in the world can you have a trial before the crime scene is even processed? I mean, think about it. Evidence is literally still being gathered, while the AI is judging and preparing to sentence the main suspect. It completely breaks the fundamental logic of any kind of investigation.
Next up, why does the villain's huge master plan, which we're told was 2 years in the making, hinge entirely on crazy coincidence? It only works because of a series of completely impossible coincidences lining up perfectly. That doesn't make the villain seem smart, it just makes the script feel kinda lazy.
And this one? This might be the most absurd leap of all. How is the man on trial, the prime suspect, suddenly allowed to command SWAT teams and lead the investigation? While he's sitting in the chair that's about to execute him, he's somehow directing police and mobilizing SWAT. The man on trial is running the whole show, and the movie just presents this with a completely straight face.
So the crucial word to describe all this is contrived. The plot becomes overwhelmingly contrived. Events don't happen organically. They feel forced into place by the writers just to move the story from point A to point B, no matter how illogical that journey is.
So, let's just look at how the third act completely collapses. What starts as a simple murder case spirals into this absolutely wild conspiracy. The killer is revealed to be his AA sponsor, who was apparently hiding in his basement for 3 days. And the motive? Building a bomb from stolen cosmetics to get revenge. And just when you think it can't get any weirder, the film throws in one last, totally pointless twist in the final 2 minutes. It's a mess.
And all of this just points to the movie's completely confused messaging. You see, it starts by setting up AI as this dangerous, unchecked power that removes due process. But by the end, the only way the hero can solve the crime and stop the villain is by using that exact same AI's immense power. The film basically argues against AI and then concludes that actually AI is the greatest crime-fighting tool ever. It completely contradicts itself.
This all leads up to the very final line of dialogue. The AI, after bending all of its own rules, asks Pratt, "What have we done?" And he looks back and says, "What we were programmed to do." It's meant to be this really profound moment, but it just falls completely flat because the AI specifically wasn't programmed to do any of the things it just did. It makes no sense. It's just a nonsensical ending to a very confused story.
So, that brings us to the big question, right? With all this in mind, the cool premise, the entertaining middle, and that disastrous ending, what's the final verdict? Should you actually go see this film?
Well, the consensus on this is pretty clear. Seeing this in a theater where you're paying for tickets and popcorn and everything, that's probably going to be a frustrating experience. It's just not worth the money. However, as a streaming movie that you just put on in the background while you're doing chores or scrolling on your phone, it's perfectly fine. It's an interesting concept that can keep you passively entertained.
The final scores really reflect this split. It lands squarely in that mediocre category. Half the reviews say it's average at its very best, maybe a 5 out of 10. The other half see it as below average, more like a 4 out of 10. There's no real strong passion for it, one way or the other. It just kind of exists. And maybe this quote is the most fitting summary of all. In the end, Mercy is a film with a killer concept that just fails to deliver on almost every single level. It doesn't have a coherent message, it takes no real creative risks, and because of that, it doesn't leave any lasting impact. So the question isn't just about the AI judge's verdict, but what's ours? And you have to ask yourself, is a film that demands you don't think about it really worth watching at all?